Joining us now, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, this president has put our country at risk, more so in the last 10 days than his whole presidency, potentially maybe more so than ever in our history. You know, he's a walking weekend at Bernie's. He's a danger to this country, is he not, sir?
You know, it really has been painful to watch. I can't think of another international trip that was as marred by massive gaffe after massive gaffe, stumbles. And look, there are consequences when the American president is weak, when his approach to every enemy of America is weakness and appeasement. That's how Biden approached Afghanistan when he surrendered catastrophically to the Taliban. That's how he approaches the Communist Party in China. It's how he approaches Iran. It's how he approaches Venezuela. And the reason that Putin invaded Ukraine is because every enemy of America looked to Washington to measure the man in the Oval Office and sadly concluded that he is weak and feckless and ineffective. And to watch Biden just stumble one after the other, he doesn't realize what he's saying anymore, and that's dangerous.
I want to get to that in just a second, but here's something that struck me. Yeah, he had that fumbling, that gaffe in Poland, inside the Polish prime minister's palace. He calls for basically calls for a regime change. Then the 47 minutes in the United States, 47 minutes we were exposed out there calling for a regime change with a nuclear power, a nuclear foe. 47 minutes it was left dangling. It cleaned it up, but then he went and doubled and tripled down with it. Sir, anything can happen in 47 minutes, especially with a madman like Putin.
Well, listen, that's right. And my views of Putin are simple. I think Putin is a KGB thug. He is a tyrant. He is a bad man. He is an enemy of America. I think a new government in Russia would be terrific for Russia and terrific for the world. But I think the right way to seek that is to take away the billions of dollars of cash that is funding Putin's war machine. And the number one way to do that is with American energy. Putin is basically a petro tyrant. You know, John McCain used to have a phrase. He called Russia a gas station with a country attached. Yeah. There's a lot of truth to that. And the single most effective thing we can do to stop Putin's war with Ukraine is get Europe to cancel their contracts for Russian oil and gas. Now, the only way they're going to do it, they're not going to turn the lights out. They're not going to stop heating their homes. So the only way Europe can do that is if America steps up and provides that oil and gas. We've got the resources, but the problem is Biden is so much captured by the radical Green New Deal left that he doesn't want America to produce more oil and gas, and he'd rather Putin make the billions for himself.
Who is running this country? Who is running the place? If every time the man opens his mouth, he says something and they have to clean up on aisle 5 and they continuously do that, you know, who's putting the words in the teleprompter? Because he stays on script. And the minute he goes off it, they're constantly cleaning up. Take a look at this picture, Senator. I know you've seen this. You probably even tweeted about this. But here's a picture of Biden's little script in case there's a tough question about Putin. And he's got an answer already pre-written. Who's running the place?
Look, and the ridiculous thing is his answer. He basically just read that answer. I mean, it's like a seal performing in the circus that he just reads what's put in front of him. And when he screws up is when he goes off the teleprompter, when he goes off the note card and says something. He doesn't know what it is that he's saying. You know, the question you just asked, Eric, I actually asked that almost every day. Somebody says, who's really running things? And let me tell you the scary thing. I have no idea. So Biden's been president, 15 months? In that entire time, I have not spoken with him once. And that's true of almost every Republican senator. I got to say that's weird. When Obama was president, I spoke with him regularly. When Trump was president, I spoke with him typically every week, sometimes every day. It is strange to have a president that is not speaking to members of the Senate, and they keep him hidden in a basement. And you know, people ask who's running things, and I'll tell you, there's speculation between various White House aides, whether it's the White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, whether it's Susan Rice, whether it's Valerie Jarrett, whether it's Obama. Or whether it's the radicals in Congress like Bernie and
can we look at that? Can we look? I mean, you know, Jake Sullivan, he doesn't seem like he's got the chops to run the place. I mean, he's got opinions and whatnot. Psaki's just the mouthpiece. You know, the Chief of Staff and Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken probably has somebody. He doesn't seem like he's the guy to step up, but it does feel does feel like there may be some infrastructure from a prior administration. As you point out, could be Obama, could be Valerie Jarrett. Could it be that crew that's actually the puppeteers to the puppet Biden?
Look, I think it's a combination, and I think you also have in Congress, you got people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and AOC. They are driven by the radical left. They're scared. The people in the Democratic Party with the pitchforks and torches are the extreme left. And Schumer, for example, is terrified of being primaried by AOC. You know, you mentioned Jake Sullivan. Let's take Ukraine, for example. One of the things that is maddening is this was preventable, and we had prevented it. So Putin has wanted to invade Ukraine for years. The reason he didn't do so is because he needs the pipelines through Ukraine to get his natural gas to Europe. That's why he began building a pipeline called Nord Stream 2, an undersea pipeline to go around Ukraine so he could invade. I authored sanctions legislation to stop Nord Stream 2. It passed in 2019. President Trump signed it into law, and we stopped the pipeline that day. When Biden came into office, Putin began building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and deep sea construction 4 days later, January 24th, and Biden waived sanctions on Putin and Russia a few months later. Now, in that fight, Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, was actually fighting to do the right thing. He wanted to impose sanctions on Nord Stream 2 because that's how you stop Putin from invading Ukraine. And Jake Sullivan at the White House essentially overruled the Secretary of State, argued for waiving the sanctions, and that's why we're seeing the invasion in Ukraine right now, is because the White House political operatives overruled their own Department of State.
You know, you talk about waiving something. I remember Vice President Joe Biden waiving $1 billion check at the Ukrainian president, saying, listen, fire the prosecutor, fire the investigator prosecutor who's investigating my son in Burisma, or I'm not giving you the check. I'm going to leave with it, and I have the power of Obama's approval to do the same thing. Is there any nefarious situation going on? He's looking the other way at the detriment of Ukraine because he still has a thing, and maybe something underlying issues with them?
You know, I don't know any evidence that the disaster in Ukraine is a direct result of Hunter Biden and the Biden's family's involvement with Burisma in Ukraine. I think really what it's the manifestation of is Biden's incredible weakness. If you look at literally every enemy of America, Biden's approach has been a weakness. It's been appeasement. It's been surrender. The Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran, who chants death to America, Biden right now is trying to give the Ayatollah hundreds of billions of dollars. And it is his approach everywhere is surrender to our enemies and abandon and alienate our friends. It's exactly backwards, and it's made the world much more dangerous.
All right, we can't let you go without something very, very pressing on the American mind right now, Senator. It's super important, and why not have a major U.S. senator weigh in on this? The slap heard around the world, Senator, is it real or was it staged? What are your thoughts?
You know, damned if I know. I try to stay out of fights between Hollywood celebrities. It was kind of weird. I'll give you that much. It was kind of weird. I got to say, it's a little strange to see the guy who played Muhammad Ali slapping and not throwing a punch. But damned if I know what was happening there. You know,
and then there's people out there, those conspiracy theorists, those that are saying, like, Chris Rock kind of was ready for it, leaned into it a little bit. Senator, I don't know. I'm gonna side with those.
So, Eric,
who say,
I'll say this:
go
it's
ahead.
a good thing Will Smith did it to Chris Rock and not The Rock. Dwayne Johnson would have decked him. So he picked the right Rock to do it to it.
And Senator, what would have happened if he'd done it to Alec Baldwin? When someone
well,
says,
that's true. Let's not even speculate on that.
Let's not do that. Senator Ted Cruz, always great having you on. Thanks for coming on today. Author of this book, One Vote Away. Senator, there's Senator Ted Cruz's book right there. Thank you so much. All right. Coming up is